Hi, it's Ian, and welcome back to my 30 Days of Knife Skills. This is day 20, and we are working with parsley. So this is flat leaf parsley that just came from the farmer's market. I think most people agree that this is the superior variety as opposed to the curly leaf parsley, both in texture and in flavor. So this is some very, very nice looking parsley. This is washed and dried. It is a lot easier to work with herbs like this when it's been dried. So using a salad spinner, usually I'll spin it and then or take a dry towel, something like this, and then just wrap it up and then try to get the moisture out of it if I'm working with a bunch of it. If it's just a little bit, it's not that big of a deal, but it does make a difference if it's dry to get a nice clean cut. The stems usually are not that usable, so there's different size in this bunch. There's some that are very thick, like this. This is quite fibrous and not something I want to eat. Doesn't really have that great of a flavor, so I'll be taking that off. Some might have more thin, delicate, something like this might be okay, but I would probably take some of this off as well still. So there's a few different ways that people approach taking just the leaves off, and maybe the stem part, instead of just throwing it away, if you're just left with this, perhaps you could chop it up small and then add it early on in your cooking, sort of like you would with celery, and perhaps it'll break down and it will cut down on the waste slightly if you want to use it like that. Usually I'm not want to do that, but I think that might be one possibility. But in terms of how we want to have fresh herbs, something like fresh herbs, I wouldn't be cooking it for a very, very long time. I want to throw it in at the end or just maybe garnish with it on top, so to preserve the freshness and the flavor. So that's how I think a lot of people would be using herbs like this, fresh herbs. So different ways to take it off. I've seen a method where you hold it here and you pull these down like this and then store it there, and then do that with a whole bunch of them like this. And then once you have a decent amount right here like that, then you would put that on your board, and then you can find that one spot to take off. And then you're left with only the leaves. So that method works for sure. I think some people might just find a leafy area and just cut and go with that. The problem is there's still quite a bit of thick stalk. I think for something this big, this looks like it was a big plant. Something like this, I would want only the leaves, so then you would have to go in and do this again, which is fine. I think some people just not even use the knife and just tear it like this, and that's another valid way to do it. I think the way I do it the most often is like none of those. I just kind of hold it like this and just shave it off. And it kind of keeps this hand from getting all messy, is one reason. I also have a very sharp knife, so it's very easy to just slice it off like that, and I can choose where I want it. So in this case, there's these two I want to take off, and then I want to take this off. So I will just take this off here, and then go here and then take that off. So I'm not sure if it's any faster, but it's the method I'm used to. Of course, you could do that on the board. You could just find those spots and just do the same thing like that. So I think all these methods work, but the way I did it just now at the end is my most common method. I do that with other things too. Just hold it up and just try to shave off the parts that I want, and then I'm left with the stuff that I don't want. Is one way. But you do need a very sharp knife if you want to just cut it in the air like that. So now we have really nice bunch of parsley. So some people just start chopping. Some people do the rocking motion. I've seen methods where you just put everything in your hand and just start chopping from there. But I think if I was trying to do this whole thing and chop it up, I try to roll it up, which makes it smaller and a little bit easier to control so that it kind of stays in one place. And then I'll start so because I'm compressing this and holding pressure with all my fingers, it kind of holds it in place and it gives me this really nice small cut, which is lengthwise, and if I want I can go back and do it this way and get a very, very fine cut. So I think that's the hardest, is to get a very fine chop or a mince on herbs like this, the loose leaf kind of herbs. So that's one way that I would do that. If I was trying to get something a little bit more coarse, maybe I wouldn't press it down as much and not be as careful and sort of go like this, something like that. And if it seemed a little bit long, then maybe I'd go this way one time. And that might be good for if you wanted to maybe finish right at the end. If you're going to toss this with pasta, for example, maybe you want some structure. You want maybe a little bit of heat to pass through and some structure and this nice green leafy look. This might be good for something else where you're trying to incorporate it more, or just float it on top of it on your plate, or some other thing like that, or on top of a soup, or mixing it into a sauce might be good for this. So this, it kind of turned into a chiffonade. So if I wanted to continue on, you could do the rocking motion this way, or I usually just do this and then kind of turn it and then keep going. And because this has been dried nicely, it's easy to move around. If it's still considerably wet, then it just sticks to everything and it's kind of hard to work with. So that might not be a big deal if you're just working with a little bit, but if you're working with a good amount, then it's worth the effort to dry it off and the time to do that. And this is like very, very large. So for very large, I might just keep it like that in a pile and just go in about 1 to 2 inch increments, and you still have some whole leaves and some are sort of cut up. So that's pretty much the main 3 kinds: the very fine, sort of the medium, and then the large size for parsley. Lots of uses. It's something that I think parsley pretty much improves anything you put it on, just about. And almost you can never have too much. So especially when you add it to the pan, there's almost never a time where you feel like, oh, I added too much parsley into that pan, into that dish before I tossed it at the end. Maybe on the plate, if I put all of this onto your one plate, that might be a little bit overwhelming. But if it's cut small, it can actually take quite a bit. So it's one of those herbs that's really good, but it can sort of play a supporting role compared to other more strong tasting herbs. It's one of those very versatile ones. So yeah, I'm always using it, and it's great to have. So anyway, that is parsley. If you have any questions, let me know, and we'll see you on the next one.